Hello, good morning and welcome to your favorite news analysis and review show on TV. It's NewDay, Saturday edition. I'm Stephen Enti. I'm sitting in for your regular host, Abena Tebi. As we always do, we will be putting to critical scrutiny the issues that dominated the news agenda during the week. And top on the agenda this week is the commencement of the MPP government's flagship free SHS program, which has come with many problems, placement issues, able-bodied students being thrown into special schools for the blind and deaf, students with aggregate 7 missing out on all 4 of their choices, among a host of challenges. The opposition NDC has described the policy implementation as a hoax and a fraud, and actually they're questioning its sustainability. The party also maintains that what is being implemented is not what the MPP promised. As in effect, the government is implementing the NDC's version of progressively free SHS. We'll be putting these issues to the discussion board and make sense out of the celebrations of the ruling party and the criticism and cynicism of the opposition. And of course, the founder of the NDC has been speaking, and you know when he speaks, he really does let it out. He has been questioning the readiness of the NDC to wrestle power from the MPP, looking at the progress of so far of the 8-month-old Nana Akufo-Addo-led administration. Rollins believes most important thing for the NDC to do is to restore its integrity. He says, and I quote, "We have to go back and seek a moral high ground," unquote. His critics, however, say he has no moral authority to say the things he says about the NDC, but he responds by saying, "We don't like it to hear it, but I will keep repeating it," unquote. So, well, that's Rollins for you. Should he be shutting up as the NDC does its own introspection? And also, 12 labor unions are threatening to go on strike if government fails to transfer their Tier 2 pension funds into their own custodian accounts by September 29. The contributions, Tier 2 contributions, have been sitting in a central bank account at the Bank of Ghana, despite an agreement for government to disburse these funds through the Accountant General's Department as of April 1st, 2016. So, key question, what is holding these payments? Should the government how should the government resolve these impasse? And also, later on, we'll be discussing the national ID card, whether it is a solution to the multiplicity of ideas that have, of IDs that exist in the system. The Bank of Ghana has set a new capital requirement for local banks. What will be the implications? We'll ask all of these. The Ghana Standards Board boss is asking for legalization of marijuana and interestingly wants to make the export of it illegal. Maybe we can make some money out of it. We'll discuss all of these. Also, Vice President Bawumia has been talking about an increase in revenue of over 50% collection at the ports with the introduction of the paperless system compared to the same period last year. Critical question, how these figures come about and how effective have the implementation of the paperless been. So we have a scope of things to be discussing this morning, and when we return, I will be introducing my guests for the day. Please stay with us. We'll be streaming live on our Facebook page and also on 3news.com. And if you're tuned into 3FM 92.7, you can hear us. We'll also take your comments, feedback on our WhatsApp page 0500 60 70 70. You can also post them on our Facebook page, facebook.com/newsontv3. If you're active on Twitter, you can send us a tweet at newsontv3. We'll be right back. This is NewDay, Saturday edition. Welcome to NewDay. So let me quickly introduce my guest for today. I have with me to my very extreme left, Dr. Edward Kwapong, who is an HR practitioner. And then next to him, I have Dr. Clement Apak, who is MP for Busa South. And then I have Andrew Eja Mesa, who is second DMP. So this is NewDay. Gentlemen, nice to have you on cool Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So we went through a couple of issues that we are going to discuss. I will start with the free SHS implementation by the MPP government. But before we do so, let's show you a package of the news items that made the headlines in the week.
A government may not be able to make every citizen rich, but with political will and responsible leadership, a government can help create a society of opportunities and empowerment for every citizen. And I know no better way to do so but through access to education. Any country that aims to transform itself into a modern, productive player in the global marketplace must get its educational policies right. Our economy, for over a century, has been dependent largely on the production and export of raw materials. This cannot and will not create prosperity for the masses of Ghanaians. If we are to succeed as a nation, and if we accept that education is central to national development, then it is clear that quality teacher training is vital to our nation's development. It is for this reason that we are committed to teacher professional development through schemes such as transforming teacher education and learning, TEL, the restoration of the teacher training allowance, which also begins today, is part of the comprehensive policy of engendering the production of quality teachers. Government, as was done under the administration of that outstanding Ghanaian statesman, the former president, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, intends to pursue the policy of upgrading 42 existing senior high schools to model schools, as was done in the case of West Africa Senior High School. We believe this is an important step towards delivery of quality education. Technical and vocational skills are crucial to our industrialization agenda, and we are committed to making them attractive to young people. The free SHS policy will cover pupils who gain admission to technical, vocational, and agricultural college institutions.
Our point is that private senior high schools are not substandard schools. If we admitted the same quality of students as the top-tier public senior high schools, we will produce equally great results. If all private SHS close down, access to secondary education for over 50,000 students currently enrolled in private SHS will be jeopardized. We call on government to extend its policy on free SHS to cover students in private senior high schools also. The investment is in the Ghanaian child, not in the school.
The state has not denied the opportunity of going to a public school. The opportunity has been given to you, one, to pass your examination and pass well. Select the school that your capacity can take you to. Two, if you are not successful at the first attempt, there's an opportunity for you to rewrite your paper and still come back onto the system. But if you think that your parents have resources to go to a private school, nobody stops you. But the point is that we cannot, at this material time, spend money on our students going to private schools. There are some schools that they went to purchase buses on high purchase, and they are paying off from PTA contributions to the schools. Now people are saying that the first year's fees. Does it then imply that to undertake a journey somewhere, they should be deprived from using the school vehicle?
After our deliberations with them, we realized that they had infractions against the implementation guideline that has been given to them. As far back as 21st August, we had given out guidelines on the implementation of the free SHS. So no one in there as a headmaster, headmistress has any good reason to say that he or she doesn't have the guidelines. We've gone through the lists and we realize that some of them, or most of them, have no basis for the complaints that they are making. And I'll give you one typical example. Agri Memorial Zion in Cape Coast. 1,000 students left the school. 1,000 left the school. You are not requesting half of that 1,000.
How can my daughter be placed in a deaf and dumb school? The situation is very worrying.
Ghana Education Service, they are saying that our forms are not correct. Ours is not correct, so we should have to wait till Friday. We don't know what to do anymore. That our papers or our forms is fake. What do they want us to do?
They were told to come to the GES office, get forms, and then reapply. Who bought from the office of GES had placements for 17. But all those who bought the forms from outside outlets, say internet cafes from outside, couldn't get placements.
We are teachers, so we are not parents. We have come to represent some of our students. Because the schools we chose for them have been changed. You see that after choosing the school, somewhere in July, why could come out with this thing that confirm their schools that you've chosen on your phone. Okay, when they confirm, some of them had their schools changed. So whose fault? It is the fault of those who are doing the placement.
School choose when you mubiala or not go to a tebu mountain, so me na kwanda. Sika from the bellot fair. I don't know. A bit of troubles. I thought Trankano, I thought matters.
They sent her to Jamestown, opposite police station over there. When I went there yesterday, they said the course that is there, he's doing general art. When I went there, they said they don't have to do art over there. So I don't know what to do again.
They were saying I should go to the net and go and do the re-entry also. But what I realized, all the schools Upper East, Upper West, and my son cannot move from here to that place.
I can state with the fact that over 200 schools that have suppliers of food, who the heads feel they are good enough to continue, have registered with Buffer Stock Company, and Buffer Stock Company has allocated those schools to those companies. But we have to ensure that the quality and the quantities are just right.
Right, so you saw what has been happening in the week over the SHS. Let's start the discussion very quickly. So I'll start with you, Dr. Pak. This SHS policy has received quite a number of reviews from the NDC, especially suggesting that it is more like the implementation of the version of the NDC's progressively free. I don't want to go into the other discussions of the NDC, one saying that this is not possible, and then it moves from impossible to progressively free and all of that. Let's look at what's on our hand. This policy, what's your over the week, everything that has been happening, what's your take on it all?
Well, first of all, let me say good morning to you and my co-panelist, and to the good people of Bulsa South, Bulsnamena, Mapusini, Ateni Solu. I would have wished that the last bit of your introduction would have been avoided, but since you made that comment, I am obligated to respond accordingly. As far as I know, the NDC, then in government and now in opposition, never said that it was a bad idea and or a policy of free education was not going to inure to the benefit of this country. If you remember very clearly, I think for the last now 3 cycles of elections, the debate has always been between gradual implementation in terms of what we call the progressive approach, you know, stage by stage, versus our colleagues on the other side of the aisle looking at a wholesale one-off implementation of the policy. If you look at the constitution of this country, it is very clear that it is a requirement that all governments are expected to work towards making education progressively free at all levels, not only confined to the secondary level. So that debate definitely waged on, and this time around, the NPP seems to have been able to make a persuasive case. We believe largely that that policy proposal of free senior high education certainly contributed to their political fortunes. Now, the issues that we have raised have to do with the specific manifesto promise vis-a-vis what we are seeing being rolled out. Because if you look at the NPP manifesto, when they talk about free education, and I just want to quote on page 107, it says that free SHS, the NPP will redefine basic education to include senior high school, covering vocational, agricultural, and technical schools, and make it available for free on a universal basis to all Ghanaians. So some of the issues that we have raised, for example, has to do with matters of equity. Because if you say universal and all, then the argument we make is that where is the equity when you are only providing what we all agree is beneficial to our people, to only those who are entering first year in senior high school. By default, you are discriminating against those in year 2 and year 3. So we raised the issue of equity. Now, the other aspect of the debate that we brought forth was that we felt the amount of money allocated was not sufficient. And indeed, this was, you know, he's a colleague MP, and he knows that during the budget presentation and the debate, you know, we on the minority side had raised the issue that 400 million Ghana cedis, giving the numbers of students that we knew were in the pipeline, and at least within the catchment of the senior high school, was not going to be sufficient. So we had asked, for example, that the government of the day identifies a secured source of funding and then also make it public so that we know that this is where we are going to draw the resources from to sustain the free senior high school policy. So I think these were legitimate issues that we raised. But as far as I know, my party never presented a document suggesting or impugning the benefit of free senior high school. Our approach
is the
was that it was going to be
that
gradual.
We're not getting what they promised to give us.
And in fact, if you look at the letter and content of their own manifesto promise, they are also adopting the gradualist approach. Because, I mean, if you are going to do year 1 in your first year, year 2 in your second year, and year 3 in your third year, is that not progressive?
That's progressive.
I mean, it's obvious. So except, of course, they want to redefine the meaning of words. But as far as the dictionary is concerned, and as somebody with an academic background, and even the lawyers would agree, words have meaning. So when you say progressive,
and when
progressive
you say
connotes
universal,
yes, it connotes something specific. And if you are going to vary it, well and good. They can vary it. That is their choice.
Honorable Mr. So
Honorable Mr. Let's but the point I'm making is so having clarified that though.
Yeah.
But let me say that we all agree that the policy has come into being. It has come to stay. But
and
we are so...
and that it's a good one.
Of course.
That every Ghanaian should support it.
It is a national policy. It is no longer within the domain of the NPP. Once it has been rolled out, I mean, it has now become a national policy that we all must do our best to ensure that it succeeds. Because as we speak now, there are schools in my constituency. I mean, one of the E blocks, perhaps the last that was commissioned by the last administration. And indeed, students have been assigned to that school. And you certainly are not expecting that it is only the wards or, you know, children of NDC or NPP who are going to benefit. By virtue of the fact that this is a program that is there for all of us to benefit from, the program and the policy has now become a national policy. And that is why some of the challenges that we are hearing in terms of the lamentations from some parents, the lamentations from some of the headmasters, and indeed, I would think that the very draconian responses that we are hearing from the GES is a bit worrisome. I mean, quite clearly, a lot more work should have gone into the implementation. And I think that is where the debate, as of now, should be situated. Because when you send students to a school that is not completed, or where they have no access to space, let alone furniture, then of course it presents a problem not only to the students in terms of the ability for teaching and learning to proceed, but even the parents. You know, you generate a lot of anxiety. So whilst we agree that the program has come to stay, I think as a responsible opposition, we also have the mandate, and Ghanaians expect us to do just that, to point out the shortcomings and identify the areas that we believe need some type of tweaking. So that the program can better serve the good people of Ghana. Because like it or not, the resources that are being pumped into the implementation of this program, these are not resources coming from the pocket of the president or the coffers of the MPP. These are resources coming from all of us. So we must all have an interest and play an active role in helping to ensure that the program succeeds. But you see, there are many dimensions to this issue, and it will be very difficult to be able to do justice to it.
I'm sure we will
under the time available. But there are also some very curious questions that arise from some of the challenges that
we'll take those questions quite later.
By and large,
the
program has unfolded. And we need to do our best, even if it is to be critical of the implementation and the challenges thereof. The critique should not be taken in bad faith. It's because we want it to succeed, because it's a constitutional mandate.
Honorable Mensah, the critique Dr. Parker is saying should not be taken in bad faith. A lot has gone on in the implementation stages. You saw the problems that some of the parents were talking about, and Dr. Parker has raised a very legitimate concerns. What is your government's approach to resolving some of these criticisms that have been coming forward, and also making sure that, one, sustainability of funding is critical. We need to know where the money is going to come from to sustain this program?
Well, before I begin, let me just say good morning to your good self and my co-panelists, and of course to your cherished viewers, particularly those in my constituency, Second D. Are you not amazed at the continued changing position of the NDC in respect of this free SHS matter? But I'm not surprised, because consistently they maintain
and what has the continuous change
as a people
of stance
of Ghana
been?
Have a very short memory, and so all of a sudden we have all forgotten what their position was in 2008. We have all of a sudden forgotten what their position was in 2012. Look, the former president is on record to have said that what we need is quality education, not free education. Have you forgotten the comments that their leading members made in respect of the NPP's flagship program in 2008, 2012, and also in 2016, that free SHS was something that we need? Consistently, they condemned it.
Nope.
You've forgotten when Pastor Otabil made comments respect to some references about free things. They picked it and blew it out of proportion, made all sorts of comments. When the pastor came to deny that he had been taken out of context, all their comments that they made on free SHS, all of a sudden, it's gone. Now, it is something that we all embrace.
So what? Your point is that they don't have the moral authority to critique what you started?
Oh, they can critique, of course. I mean, it's not the money that is being implemented or used for the implementation of this policy doesn't belong to the NPP. These are resources that have been vested in the government that have been elected by the people of Ghana to use for the benefit of Ghanaians. And to the extent that they are Ghanaians and to the extent that they are the biggest opposition party, they can critique the policy. There's no problem. But the mischief, the inconsistencies in their position.
You think there is mischief
Absolutely.
in demanding
they have consistently maintained
funding and
that
sustainability
this is not
plan?
It's an impossible policy. It's a 419. It's an attempt to deceive the people of Ghana. All of a sudden we have forgotten. But like I said, they have maintained that we have short memories. But I know your cherished viewers do not have short memories. They remember all the things that you said about the free SHS.
And they also remember what you said in your definition of
oh, of course. And look, don't forget that the people of Ghana expect us as a government to be responsible with the finances that they've entrusted in our hands. Of course, nobody expects that we will use all the resources of this country to fund education. And that even if we're going to use it to fund education, we ought to do it in a responsible manner. Okay? This is the parameters that the government has set regarding the implementation of the free SHS. It is not progressive. It is not the same as theirs.
Why is it
because
not progressive?
In their case,
starting year one,
the number
so
of people who could not afford to go to school because of the fees were huge. In excess of 100,000 Ghanaians under their policy were not going to school. Under our policy, those who are in school are remaining in school. And those who are entering are all entering, save those who did not pass the exams. So let them not confuse themselves and the people of Ghana in thinking that what we are doing is the same as theirs. It's not. Okay? This is a completely different policy that is seeking to provide education to every single Ghanaian.
So tell me how different that is from the progressive
I'll just explain to you that in our case,
NDC...
in their case, several Ghanaians in excess of 100,000 were dropping out on a year-by-year basis. Under our policy, every single Ghanaian who passes the exam, okay, goes to school, and he's not paying for his education. Under theirs, the students were paying. So it is a completely different policy. Let's not confuse the issues at all. Okay, what we are saying is that with the implementation, bear in mind that our manifesto is a 4-year manifesto. It's a 4-year promise that we made to the people of Ghana. When we go back to them in 2020, they will assess us to make a determination whether the promises that we made in the 4-year document have been achieved or not. So you can't set the parameters for us because you see, consistently, they've raised issues about finance. You can't do it because they knew that they had bankrupted this country such that there was no way government could find money to fund the free education. So if you listen to them, that's been their clarion call all along. You haven't heard them. Their press conference, they made all issues. Funding, do it. All your free SHS, one district, one factory. Where is the fiscal space? From day one, their minority leader has been singing that song. But government has a responsibility. And His Excellency the President has said that rather than use the resources of this country in a manner that will not inure to the benefit of all of us, that same landing in the hands of a few people, he would rather deploy it in educating our people so that they will have a future. And that's what is happening. Of course, every new policy implementation, you expect that challenges would arise. And so, yes, there have been issues with placement, there have been issues with people flouting guidelines, there's been issues with whether deliberate or not to as it were, jeopardize the implementation of the government policy. I said whether true or not, I don't know. But
I mean,
of course,
investigation is supposed to comment into whether these were really meant to jeopardize the program.
A body that has been engaged, Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, several stakeholder consultations were held, including one at home, where all the policy issues were discussed and agreed that this is the way that we are going to implement the policy. And people deliberately go about flouting the very policy that the heads of assisted secondary schools have agreed. What other motives can you attribute?
We'll be delving into the challenges a little bit more, but let me go to Dr. Kwapong. Dr. Kwapong, I intentionally wanted to come to you with the challenges of the free SHS you've seen, so that we take it away from the NDC and MPP and their position. So when you look at some of the challenges that have come forward, challenges of people not being able to get placement, and those who flouted the guidelines, some actions that have been taken against this one. 9 or so head teachers have been on interdiction and all of that. Do you get the sense that the management of these problems have not been done well or humanely?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Something that you embrace.
Gentlemen, we need to get Dr. Kwapong to express
thank you.
his views on
it's good to hear parliamentarians from both sides of the divide discussing this matter. I don't expect the two of them to agree. so it's normal. It's normal.
Although we are both products of Commonwealth, we agree to disagree.
So it's been interesting listening to them. It's a matter of ideology and approach, but at the end of the day, they seem to say that yes, indeed, we all need to have the free SHS because it has a lot of benefits for our people. Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore once said that the most precious resource or asset of any nation is its talents. So you realize that any move towards building a solid talent base is important for the development of a nation. So I'm all for it, regardless of the approach or the ideology behind it. Again, it's a manifesto promise fulfilled. So yes, I'm happy. The challenges, yes, for every new thing, we expect to have some initial hiccups. So yes, there are hiccups, but I think they are surmountable. With time, stakeholders will be able to overcome.
You describe these as just hiccups, that they're not challenges that could actually derail the effective implementation?
No, well, I'm very positive in embracing change. If it's a change for the better, why not? And the challenges, placement. We've always had it over the years. Since we introduced the computer placement, we've always had these challenges.
But we're
but this time around,
this time around, it was enormous.
Yes, it's because now education SHS is free, so the numbers have increased, and quite naturally, proportionately, the size of the problem will also increase. But it has always been with us. It's a matter of technology, and so I believe we can overcome. For 15 years plus, some banks have used computerized systems and networks to run businesses. As we speak, we encounter problems day after day. They assure customers that, oh, we have a bit of a hitch here. We are resolving it behind the scenes, and we will restore you to normalcy. So for me, placement, no big issue. The issue, though, is that if your parent lives in Accra and you are posted to Bulsa, then it becomes an issue. If you don't get admission to a boarding school, where are you going to stay? Who is going to take care of you? Who will monitor even your studies and where you stay and all that? And remember, education is not just imbibing knowledge, but building you morally to grow to become a responsible citizen. So for me, I believe the opportunity for us to seek replacement is there. We can go back, and Ghana Education Service will do the needful, and so we will resolve these problems.
Right. So let's look at Doc. Let's look at the issue of 2 heads of schools who were sacked and 9 that were interdicted for, as it were, flouting guidelines, regulations. I mean, as an HR person, there have been comments to suggest that this was actually pretty harsh because some of those who were interdicted have had genuine concerns. For example, if you are expecting, you are always intaking about 500 students and suddenly you have 1,000 and you don't have space for them, you would want to improvise, maybe charge a few cedis to get in place some basic infrastructure like seats and chairs and tables, so the students can start school and then later government will provide all of those things. So what's your take on that, the approach, Ghana Education Service, coming down so hard on these heads of schools?
Well, they needed to set an example.
So this was a good disciplinary
But
example?
otherwise, I disagree with them. In HR practice, before you sanction somebody, before you punish an employee, there should have been a provision of, what do you call it, an act that is not acceptable. We have offenses, minor offenses, major offenses, and all that. You need to have a list of offenses and corresponding sanctions, so that when you flout the provision, then you can be sanctioned. And again, when you are being sanctioned, you go through a process. You must be heard. We must hear, I mean, principles of natural justice require that we hear the other side of the story. But on the spur of the moment, if you sanction, and later on, you know, some may want to take it up at a higher level or even in the law courts, and you realize that you've not gone about it the right way, it can be very embarrassing to all of us, to government, to the minister, and all of us. I thought, yes, you could have interdicted them and taken your time to have gone through the motions to make sure that, yes, they are indeed guilty. Guilty of what? Have we defined the offenses? Merely flouting a guideline may not be the basis for, you know, sacking somebody who might have worked for 20, 25 years in Ghana Education Service. So for me, it has been a bit rash. We all say that the wheels of justice turns slowly. But grinds fine. Eventually, if you go through the motions and ensure that, yes, there have been offenses and we've tried them and they've been given a fair hearing and therefore we are punishing them, that will have been fair. So in industry and in HR practice, we always allow time for a disciplinary committee to sit, go into the merit of the matter and then hand down the discipline. They have been a bit too rash
Honourable Mr. I know I should get to Dr. Park, but quickly, Honourable Mr. In relation to these challenges that I am speaking about in terms of 2 heads being sacked and 9 being interdicted, I know you don't speak for the Ghana Education Service, and Ghana Education Service is not really government, but your government's position is to create jobs, actually. So you come into power and a few challenges and you begin to just let people off. Is that not too harsh?
They've been sacked as headmasters. They haven't been dismissed from the employment of a Ghana Education Service. Of course, I mean, being a headmaster is a management role. You start off as a teacher and grow through the mill to become headmaster. So to the extent that they haven't lost their employment, if you like, government has not failed in creating jobs or, as it were, taking people off their employment for that matter. What it is this. I mean, we're
relieved of their posts. Some were put on interdiction.
Some were demoted. Some have been put on interdiction. So clearly, your offence suits the kind of punishment that has been meted out to them. So I don't have any qualms with the decision of the Ghana Education Service.
Dr. Park.
Well, I happen to agree with the teacher unions that the action taken by the GES certainly is a bit harsh. And to me, it seems as though, you know, there are some pressure points being pushed to muscle headmasters from speaking out about some of the challenges that, you know, the introduction of the free senior high school is presenting with them.
Pressure points, muscled out. Those are very strong.
Oh, no, but I mean, that's speciality. She was even suggesting that drinking from the same fountain in Parliament. In any case, access, you know, is not just a determined by cost. Space also counts. And I think that is also where we are seeing the challenges. And indeed, whilst we can talk about the big numbers and the fact that this is presenting challenges, if we had not created the spaces, the numbers of students today who are currently being posted to various schools wouldn't have the space. So it is very, very important that we put that in perspective. But it is also the challenges of space and the other logistics and accoutrements needed to enhance, teaching and learning, which has caused some of these headmasters to perhaps overstep what, the MPP described as guidelines. I'm here to see the guidelines, because I remember when Charles met in Ho, they made a request to the government to provide them with a Bible. That is what they called it, the Bible of the free SHS, which tells me that at that time, even Charles had not seen a document outlining, the do's and don'ts and the procedures and how to address these sort of challenges. Take the example of one of the headmasters, and I don't want to mention the school. I mean, we all heard him in the media lamenting about the fact that the students didn't even have furniture to sit on. And parents had even proposed, from the story that I heard, to procure plastic chairs for their awards, just to enable them to sit down. How do you learn when you have no place to sit? And so if a headmaster is trying to address a practical challenge of this nature, and that then causes him to veer off what the guidelines are, how do you interdict such a person? And this is a challenge that we see being replicated in different parts of the country. If you take the Kanjara Senior High School, for example, it's a new school, had never admitted students before. It didn't even have a code, because even the placement, I am told that would require the school to have a code from WAEC, on the basis of which the Free Senior High School Secretariat would then give a password for the school to be able to have access to the database to even know the number of students assigned. As of the second day, my checks had indicated that that school didn't receive the computer that was promised every school with a modem to give them access. WAEC had not issued them the code, because it had never admitted students, let alone to have prepared them for exams. And therefore, the Free Senior High School Secretariat had not given them the password. So these are practical challenges. So if you are a headmaster of a school of that nature, what do? You certainly, by your training, you would try to find practical ways of addressing the issue. So what they were doing was to use the manual way of, recording the students who were coming there with their printed letters from the internet. So if a headmaster chooses to allow parents to procure plastic chairs for the awards to sit on, is this a basis to interdict such a person?
You will recommend that the GES takes a second look at this.
I truly believe
if
so.
possible, give them a chance to come back and do their work.
Yes.
And maybe
so we all
reprimand
agree.
them in a way.
We all agree that some of these challenges may not have been anticipated, but they are there and they are real. I mean, why are we trying to behave as if these people have committed murder by trying to adopt practical means of making the system work? These are professionals. And if indeed government has any basis to suspect any acts of mischief or any acts of sabotage, definitely, I think that the investigative processes can commence and such people punished. Because I certainly will not condone anyone trying to sabotage a policy that is supposed to benefit all of us. So let's admit that there are some challenges that we did not anticipate, and that some of these headmasters genuinely wanted to do the best within the context of the challenges that the introduction has presented them. And then we'll move on from there. But interdicting them is almost as though you are trying to choke them and prevent them from being citizens.
We have to begin to look beyond the challenges and chart a new course. I mean, what is the way forward? What should it be? The problems, we've seen them. We've seen them. We've heard a lot of people. I mean, people were posted. Able-bodied students were posted to special schools, deaf and dumb schools, and some who had aggregate 7 didn't get all 4 of their choices and all. These problems are there, but we need to begin to look beyond the problem. So what would you suggest we should be doing now, beyond the problem?
Yeah, we should learn from these experiences and reposition ourselves going forward. For instance, the case of a headmistress who said, look, you've posted 1,000 students to me. I have space for, in terms of dormitory space, for 500. There are what do you call them? Hostels, private hostels in the neighborhood. Look, we've spoken to the owners. Send your wards to those hostels. And we've even assigned teachers to serve as it were, housemasters there. Good intention, good motive. And yet we are sanctioning them. So let us be careful, let us be slow, and make sure that we rather learn from these experiences. And if you're able to establish that indeed somebody had a criminal intention to flout the rule, then we can punish them.
Guidelines, and we don't have any documents suggesting how this is going to be funded over the progressive period of the next 3 years that the MPP will be in power and all of that. Should we just look beyond that?
Well, in terms of funding, we've been given the assurance by both the president and the vice president. They know the sources, and I believe they will be able to find the money. They are also plugging the loopholes, the leakages in the system in terms of revenue generation, revenue collection, and all that, at the ports, wherever. So I believe they should be.
You have hope in
yes,
them.
They should
but
be.
We also need to know, as Ghanaians, what the plan is. You don't think so?
Oh, sure. But they have said that, look, we require so much. We've given you 25% of that now. We're working gradually towards raising the remaining amount. So I believe they will have to find it, because this is their flagship program, and they cannot afford to fail. They cannot afford to fail.
Absolutely, and you can rest assured that we are not going to fail.
We won't let you fail.
You wish that we fail.
We won't let you fail.
It will not happen.
It's benefiting all of us.
You see, it's interesting why Chas has not spoken in respect of the sanctions that were imposed on these persons. Because I believe that they know that we all agreed that if you flout the guidelines, there will be sanctions. For the teacher unions, I really don't see what it is that they are saying, because the truth of the matter is that these persons have not been dismissed as teachers. In any event, I know that instructions were issued to heads of schools that, look, if you find it needful that some fee ought to be levied, write and seek approval and go ahead and charge. So if you have challenges, which we all agree is possible to occur, what stopped them from writing to Ghana Education Service saying that, look, we do not have furniture in our school, and that because of that we want to levy 10 Ghana cedi to every parent, 20 Ghana cedi to every parent, 30 or whatever amount to every parent, to enable us procure furniture so that when the wards come, they can get a place to sit. But if you don't do that, and you go out of your way to flout, lay down clear, unambiguous guidelines, that seeks clearly to bring the image.
You think that they brought this to themselves?
I believe so.
They're also
because ample opportunity was given to everybody. That, look, yes, we know that our educational system is not perfect. Our infrastructure is not all in place. In any event, since when did this last school become aware that it hasn't got furniture? Is it a new school? Clearly it's not. It's been in existence for quite a number of years. And so if you as the teacher or head teacher know that you don't have furniture in the school, it was incumbent on you to have written to Ghana Education Service, seek appropriate clearance, and effect whatever.
Oh no, but there's one aspect of the debate which I almost didn't bring it in. The angle of the private schools suggesting that this free SHS is actually going to hurt them. I mean, many of them feel that it's calculated to collapse their businesses. What is the plan long term to bring these private institutions on board? Is there any plan like that?
I don't think so, and I don't see why there should be, because my brother has copiously made references to the Constitution. The same Constitution in Article 25 makes provision for private persons to participate in the educational space. It's business. I mean, if it's evolving in a certain direction, it's up to you as a business person.
But we know of some schools where, for example, they get about 100 students placed by the computer placement system into their schools. But with this free SHS, they only got 2. That's serious. I mean, these private businesses are going to collapse.
Well, I don't think that's an issue that cuts across. I mean, of course, if you are going to extend free SHS to all private schools, some schools charge in excess of
NDC will surely wish that happens, right?
No. They would wish
that
we wouldn't.
Private schools are...
You know, I really don't see the issue. And I believe that the Deputy Minister of Education has responded adequately.
You know, I have not firmed up an opinion
on the inclusion of private schools.
But quite clearly, since the private sector has always played a role in, you know, in the educational sector, certainly they need to be engaged. But I see that the focus of government now
should be
is to try and ensure that, you know, at least we deal with what it has put out and to work on the challenges. If thereafter,
subsequently,
yes, if
the program stabilizes,
you know, the system is stabilized, then I believe that naturally there will be some type of engagement. I mean, sometimes we just have to call a spade a spade.
Call a spade a spade.
I mean, they are private business people. We all know why they have their schools. The profit motive is always reigning supreme. But if you look at the thesis informing, you know, the introduction of free senior high school, you know, is to ensure that every Ghanaian of school-going age has access to education.
Right. Gentlemen, this
is... Yes, but you know it is progressive. We created the space, first of all.
It is an add-on to your
we laid the foundation.
We need to take a break. We need to take a break here.
We want you to succeed. We want you to succeed because if it succeeds, Ghana succeeds.
If it succeeds, Ghana succeeds. Indeed, I agree with that.
My ward definitely is going to benefit. Your ward is going to benefit. His ward is going to benefit.
And mine too, of course.
But we just don't want the challenges to continue and dilute the quality of education.
There's no dilution of any education.
If you can't get a place to sit,
like
how do you study?
Like Doc said, the issues of placement and lack of furniture and all these things that are happening now has been with us for ages.
But if we don't handle the challenges well,
the issue is this, that
it will have an impact on quality.
This government has implemented a free SHS policy where people who are going to year 1 are not paying school fees.
It is progressive.
And that has come to stay.
And year 2.
Accept it and let's move on.
Next year, they won't pay. Then year 3.
This is New Day, Saturday edition. I'm Stephen Enti. I'm sitting in for your regular host, Abinatebi. And you can hear us on 3FM 92.7. Also, we're streaming live on our Facebook page and also on 3news.com. When we'll return, we'll read some of your messages, but keep sending them. We've seen a lot more coming. 0500 60 70 70. We'll be right back.
If you want to send the money or receive the money, Vodafone Cash is so simple and reliable. Oh baby,
Vodafone Cash, a most Casamia day, a man your money is simple, a reliable. Now what this is Vodafone Cash to me.
Welcome back to New Day, Saturday edition. I still have with me Dr. Clement Parker, Dr. Edward Kwapong, and Honorable Ejapa Mesa, who's second DMP, Dr. Parker's Busa South MP. We have some of your messages coming in. Keep sending them, 0500 60 70 70. This one coming from Alikali Kunate Sandama. Yes. You say that the NDC is simply making this ugly noise concerning free education because they may not have any campaign message for Ghanaians come 2020. And then this one's Al-Hassan Wanwana in Wa says, free SHS educational policy has come to redeem us from our suffering because parents will not now have to run helter-skelter looking for money to pay their awards fees. Thanks for sending the messages in, and then I will cut off a lot of yours. And this one says from Afari, says, please tell Dr. Park these heads have not been punished because they spoke about the policies. So what happened to them? I would like to know. We were told that they've not been dismissed outright from the Ghana Education Service. And Ohini from Konongo, Ohini, you are saying, Dr. Park, why? How can you say MPP's free SHS is the same as the caricature of the policy the NDC puts in place? Your word caricature, I should have skipped that a bit too right, and you continue to say that the NDC gave 48 cedi subsidy to students and selected 10,000 students using political lenses for school scholarship. And you dare compare that to what the MPP has introduced? Thank you very much, Ohene from Konongo. And then Alhaji Hamza Pig Farm says, I simply want to dare the MPP to make the free SHS policy document available for Ghanaians to see. I can tell you for a fact that there is no policy document. And if there is one, please, the MPP should be bold enough to tell Ghanaians. Thank you, Alhaji Hamza. Idrisu ABA Husseini says that, you see, anytime I hear MPP members are speaking on the 419 free SHS, I get confused because what they promised during the campaign was not the same as what we're seeing now. If you could recall, in opposition, they said they're going to make it free for all. Today, it turns out to be free scholarship for the few, and not even for all those who qualify for BEC 2017. Thank you very much. And also this one from Abu Bakari says that although there is a Northern scholarship, my brother could not go to the SS because we couldn't afford the fees. He has to wait till I finish university to ensure he has secondary education on part-time basis in 2005. Some say free SHS is constitutional requirement. How long has the NDC been in power? Since 1992. 16 years out of 25 years. Why didn't NDC make SHS free? Leadership is indeed because, and all other things affect. I think there's something left out in your message, but Al-Hassan Abubakar, thank you very much for that. And this one from Evans Osekrom says that, Steve, good morning to you and your panelists. The policy on free SHS rolled out should not be juxtaposed against the NDC's progressively free, which they never paid the absorbed fees to most of the schools, including where I teach. You have stated where you teach, but I'll leave it out. The challenge I have with the NDC members is the inconsistency in characterizing their critique of the policy as they keep shifting the goalposts. In one breath, the policy cannot be implemented. In another breath, they brought the concept. This is a national policy and it should be embraced by all. Evans, thank you for your message. And Brookman Anobil from Mataheko says the record levels of poverty among Ghanaians is as a result of the poor governance offered the nation by President John Dramani Mahama. For me, the previous leaders who have served the country under PNDC and subsequently the NDC have not done any better, leaving Ghana in a worse state. I thank God for giving us incorruptible leadership and all of that. Thank you. And this one from Erica, Volta Region says, I want to ask NDC man that, so if they win the election next 4 years, are they going to tell us that they won't continue the policy and they cannot also find money, as they're saying? Where is the money coming from? All right, and good morning, Steve, to your panelists. I completed JHS in 2016, but due to financial problems, I couldn't start SHS. They claim there were re-entry forms, which we heard nothing about. I'm shouting to His Excellency, the President, the Minister of Education, that even if they won't absorb us, the 2016 graduates, in the free SHS policy, they should allow us to go for admission because we are ready to to pay our fees. That's a clarion call there. I think, Honorable Mesa, you would have to respond to this particular one, especially in relation to those 2016 graduates who have been unable to enter. I'll get back to you and we'll continue that. And John Robert Mensah, reaching us from Teshi, says, if the MPP man is saying Ghanaians have short memory, that's not true. Remember what the president said when campaigning in our senior high school. He promised free SHS for all. Now it has changed to progressive free SHS. We, the second and third year students, are highly disappointed in the president. And Assad from Bole says, Haruna minority leader said it. It is a hoax. Okay, thank you. And Tony Nunus Shama says, good morning. I call upon all workers and all those on retirement to rise against the wicked intentions of SNITs to cut down the already inadequate payments to the pensioners. I plead with the MPP government to stop the move. Thank you. And this one from Kotoka Courage in Anglonga in the Volta region. You are saying, good morning, Brother Stephen, and to my comrade, Doctor. My brother, how can this government be creating problem to school hands? I believe that it will come to a time when our school will have a problem because the hands, I'm not sure, maybe you're talking about the heads. The hands will now have to be careful of their works, but they were way not. I'm afraid that, Courage, you need to resend your message so I can understand. I cannot understand. And Kusi from Ejiso Jabbing, Ejiso Bisiase, okay, says that by the fruits of by their fruits they will be known. The NDC kicked against free SHS. They posited that it was not feasible. They later declared it unsustainable and later questioned the source of funding. It was their prayer that free SHS should not see the light of day. And Olivier Bamba from Salaga says Dr. Park should be candid enough to the NDC. Progressively free wasn't same as what we are seeing under the MPP. And Abdullah from Tamale says, good morning to you all. The current free SHS is not universal as promised by the NDC. And from Takrady, Charles says, good morning. Panelists, please, there is an adage written that it is only a fool who could not change his or her mind. Therefore, if today national resources are committed to a flagship program, I do not think we should begin to politicize it if these challenges. We have more of your messages coming in, but we need to continue with our discussions. Later, we're shifting our post to the comments by the leader of the NDC, Rollins, J.J. Rollins, but I wanted to switch a little, give a little bit of time for some of the comments that came, especially I remember clearly the 2016 graduates who were not able to be placed.
Well, my understanding was that initially the remit of the free access policy, it was covering only students who sat for the 2017 examination, but subsequently following some representations that were made, the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education
is considering,
considered and has granted them the opportunity to assess
so
admissions this
you would
year.
say that they shouldn't lose hope.
Yes, I think that
there is hope for them. But let's quickly move to our next discussion. The founder of the opposition NDC has been speaking, and you know that when he speaks, he really lets it out. He has been questioning the readiness of the NDC to recapture power in 2020, especially compared to the 8-month-old Nana Akufo-Addo-led MPP government. And I want to quote something he said. He says that we have to go back and seek a moral high ground. Unquote. His critics say he has no moral authority to be saying the things that he says about the NDC. But he's adamant. He says that we don't like hearing the truth, but he will keep speaking the truth. Pretty shortly, we'll be playing you an interview that he had on TV3 with, on News 360. Let's actually watch, and then we'll continue with that discussion.
Do right now to organize itself for the 2020 elections?
There are quite a few things that need to be done. However, let me simply say that I would very much want to see the NPP beaten. But do we have what it takes? Do we have the capacity to be able to wrestle power from them in their midstream. That's the issue we should be addressing. We should be looking at this question a lot more seriously than we've done so far. That's it.
Right. You are a former president, the leader of the party. At the moment, what do you think can be fixed right now to make the NDC ready to win the 2020 elections?
Quite a few things, but the most important factor, I believe, has to do with the issue of the cleanup that needs to be done. The restoration of our integrity. We don't like to hear it, but I keep repeating it. We have to go back, seize the moral high ground. And I believe we know what we have to do. Okay, but I don't think we're prepared to confront it. Or that's what I've noticed about some of our people.
So, Mr. President, how about the grassroots of the party? I mean, we have recognized that the NDC relies so much on the influence of the grassroots, or what we call grassroots politics, to win elections. Are they involved in this clean-up that you are talking about?
If we would involve them, I'm sure they could ensure it. They could help us clean up. But the manner in which the electoral process has been happening since Sunyani, has not been encouraging. It's unfortunate, most unfortunate. That's how come we lost the moral high ground. I think they know what needs to be done.
We have been following the discussions after the NDC lost power in the 2016 elections, and there seems to be some disaffection from the grassroots. How are you going to bring them on board and give them the confidence that they require to really fight for the party to come to power again?
Well, the point is to embark on the empowerment process. Let's give back the party to them. They are the ones who actually make it possible to win or lose elections. Let's respect their views. Let's respect their pains, their sensitivities. Let's get back to, and when I say the moral high ground, it's about time we stop using the money factor. Let's get back to the respect of our values. Yep.
So,
you can't use money to buy anything and everything.
Yeah, I reckon that. But how do you reconcile the top hierarchy of the party now to recognize that they need to come together to get this victory you're talking about?
Yes, we need to come together, but around personalities or around issues, around values. I think that is what will make the difference. Let's get back. Let's unite around the old values. Then I think we'll be making some progress.
All right. Okay. That was the former President, Jerry John Rawlings. He's been speaking to us on his concerns about reorganizing the NDC to take back power.
So that was an exclusive interview with former President Rawlings with Izamoni on TV3's News 360. So let me start with you, Dr. Park, on this one. The former president says the NDC needs to get back to its moral high ground. That's a very fair comment, and it needs to clean itself out. He's been using these expressions for a long time. It does suggest that there is a lot of clean out to do. The NDC acknowledges that over the weekend, last weekend or so, former President John Mahama went on a unity walk. Many people have criticized that, suggesting that it was a Mahama walk more than the NDC walk, and that the unity that your party is supposed to begin, the unity process the party is supposed to begin, they're not doing it right, they're not starting right, according to the recommendations of the Kwesi Butcher Committee. So here is Chairman Rawlings again. You agree with what he said? Some of the things he said?
Well, he is entitled to his opinions. I have just heard this for the first time. I've been quite busy with my work as a member of the Public Accounts Committee. But it's good that you played the excerpt for me to hear it directly.
So this was an interview on our
yes.
network
so
last night.
it's legitimate that I should tweet my comments around what I've just heard. The founder of our party has always been very blunt and straightforward in expressing his opinion about what he believes has gone wrong in the party, what needs to be done for us as a party moving forward. And the comments that he just made are not any different from the comments that he made even before the general election. But I thought it was rather interesting that he says that he wishes, he would want to see the MPP lose. And then he then goes on to talk about what he believes needs to be done to put us in a good stead to be able to wrestle power from the MPP. He talks about the moral high ground. And he then goes on to clarify that that has to do with the monetization of the political system. And that it shouldn't always be about the influence of money, but that we needed to rally around values and to empower the grassroots. I think that that process has already begun. But as a political party which went into battle, you know, and came out with serious bruises, naturally, it is expected that you would look at why you got into that situation, the conditions and the factors that precipitated that, learn from your mistakes, and try to correct them as a basis of.
And I thought the NDC has gone past that because you've done the introspection already.
That is what
through the Kwesi-Botwe
it is ongoing. The Kwesi-Botwe committee has done its work. They presented the report. Various committees have been set up, and they are beginning to implement them. Now, when he speaks about empowering the base or the grassroots, I think that that in itself is going to come off the impending processes of selecting new leadership. Because as you know, every political party usually has a timetable and you have to go through processes. And so that is where the empowerment comes in. If the masses, the rank and file, quite clearly who should assert themselves, truly believe that certain leaders or certain personalities have not conducted themselves well, or their effort was subpar, they have the opportunity to make a choice. So I think that, like every institution, yes, we were bruised, we have accepted it, we know that there are certain things that we should have handled a lot more better, but I think that the processes have begun. And I think that truly, the one area that I agree with him, wholeheartedly, and I think that this has become the bane of our Fourth Republic, is the increasing influence of money in our national politics. I mean, for God's sake, you cannot even get a couple of guys to put up posters without giving them something to buy water. These are issues. So where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line? And the truth too is that if you organize an event and people are to come, and they are to come from distant places, it is expected that you should be able to provide them with some type of support to come in and go out. Is that good? Is that bad? So there are very serious issues to discuss. But in as far as the former president is concerned, I don't think that this that he has said now is any different from what he has said before. I think that it is just him trying to remind us of his expectation of what we should be doing to put ourselves in a good stead, so that as he says, we can beat the NPP. He actually said that. He says he wishes that we did that.
I know that one of the issues is also that his wife, Kunedo Ajman-Rawlings, broke away from the NDC and formed her own party.
Yes,
should we begin the clean out by bringing Nana Kunedo back to the fold of the NDC?
We are all people who enjoy freedom of speech and association. It's our right. If I choose to belong to Party A or Party B, it's my right. If I choose to leave Party A or Party B to go and form Party C. It's my right.
But when
And
a former First Lady breaks away from the party which made her husband president,
well, she has her own reasons.
That should be very
and
difficult.
And she made a conscious decision.
But is the NDC working
she
towards
chose to do that.
Trying to appeal to her?
I wouldn't know, because I'm not a member
fold?
of NEC. I'm not a founding member. I'm not the founder. I am not a member of the Council of Elders. I am a member of Parliament and a member of the Minority Caucus in Parliament, representing my people. But whatever decisions are made, whatever guidelines, processes, and procedure are unfolded, I think that will all fall in line.
But do you think that challenge should be thrown to the president, the former president, that challenge?
Well, I think that he knows, obviously, what he believes is good for the party.
You do know that the 31st December movement has solid grassroots base.
I have not disagreed with you. What I'm saying is that the former First Lady made a conscious decision. Just as she decided to leave, she can decide to come. I don't know the conditions that precipitated her exit, and I will not pretend to speak for her. She has her own spokespersons.
But I was asking your view.
You have asked me.
Former President Rawlings should be taking that responsibility to perhaps start this process by bringing his wife back?
I don't think that I have the capacity to judge,
to throw that challenge
or
to
to challenge him by far. Okay. I am a minnow, and I don't pretend to have the weight to be able to engage him at that level.
That's fair.
But what I know is that what he has said is not new. It's a reminder. I believe that the processes have begun, and if we can empower the base, the rank and file, indeed, he talks about reducing the monetized nature of our politics. I think that certainly, if we are to hold high our values that he keeps referring to, the old values, then the issue of reducing the monetized nature of our politics would complement the ability to hold high the old values that he speaks about. But we must also know that political organizations have lives of their own. They evolve. New ideas come in, new persons come in. We can mix the old with the new, find the balance, and then we move on as a political party.
Honorable Mesa, NDC issues. What
He's
do
going
you...
to have a few.
I know.
You can see the way he was nodding his head.
He's preparing.
Very well.
So Rawlings has been very, I don't want to say friendly with the Nana Akufo-Addo generally because they come all the way back. They have a good relationship and all of that. Do you see that to suggest, as an indication, I beg your pardon, that he's more for the MPP than he is for his own party, which he formed? That has actually, there have actually been some of the criticism against former President Rawlings.
Well, I don't think so, but of course, I mean, President Rawlings has been around for a long time. He's a very experienced politician, and he appreciates a good thing when he sees one. Clearly, he appreciates the good deeds that His Excellency, the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, is doing. And so he's largely commended him and, in a sense, encouraged him to do more. You see, this interview from last night...
At a point in time, Rawlings will not even refer to Akufo-Addo by name.
I don't have a problem with that, of course.
Sure,
I mean, you see, yes, he didn't know him well, but as time went on, he's come to know him better. He's listened to him, he's observed him from afar, and he knows that he has something good going for Ghana. And I believe that that's why he's warmed up to His Excellency the President. Like I was saying, this interview on your network was not given in isolation. You recall that earlier in the day, Boulare paid a visit to him.
Oh, that's so.
Yes, President Rawlings' residence to invite him to his book launch on the 21st of September, next Thursday. And he asked him whether he thinks that NDC had the capacity to beat NPP in the 2020 election. And he laughed it off and said, right, with what they are doing, it's practically impossible for the NDC to beat the NPP in 2020.
No, honestly, it's too early to make such a judgment.
Save that, of course. We are a human institution, and I've always said that when it comes to policy implementation, we will score a high mark. what it is that we have to do as a political party is to conduct ourselves well. And the president has made that admonition as well. Former President Kufuor has said same. If we comport ourselves well, we behave properly, we, in all humility, serve the people of Ghana, there's no way that the NDC will beat us in 2020. And I think that former President Rawlings has seen it. And I would always encourage my members of my party who are in government to try to, adhere to the call that has been made on them by President Asiedu-Dartey Akufo-Addo and all the people who have occupied high offices in this country, and victory definitely will be ours. Because look, the people of Ghana are seeing clear differences between us and the NDC. It's not mere rhetoric. I mean, we are backing our words with clear, demonstrable action that people can measure. Launched at one district, one factory. It's going to roll out more than 60 factories commencing this year. Roll it out next year. And planting for food and jobs, staking seed firmly on the ground. Paperless port is increasing our revenue. The national identification card has been relaunched. It's going to be rolled out. You see, yesterday I had some assertion.
No, but I was there. You know, I had a thing to do with the ports. When we brought West Blue, what was the complaint
the
at
mischief?
The
And I knew you were going to come there.
Start this process.
Look, West Blue did not start. Oh, now you've mentioned GCNet.
Oh yes, but GCNet has
because
always been in it.
GCNet is the engine, not West Blue.
West Blue.
So don't even try to go there because I have serious information on the
we're
paperless
digressing.
thing.
We'll do this discussion
very well.
subsequently in the program. So let's stick with this NDC.
But for the intervention of His Excellency the Vice President, okay, the paperless port would never have materialized.
Would have collapsed.
Absolutely.
Before it started.
And this is coming from within, people who manage the institutions. That it took the Vice President's bold statement and leadership and guidance to get us where we are today. So yes, don't try to take credit with your West Blue introduction.
We haven't taken.
You only sought to create duplications within the system, but that's another.
We'll do the discussion
subject for another discussion.
We'll do the discussion.
Like I was saying, look,
along the line.
I think that we are on track as a party in government. We need to stay focused and ensure that we deliver on our promises to the people of Ghana. And the statement that His Excellency, the former president, made will surely come to pass. I mean, Mr. Rawlings, his statement that he doesn't believe that with the way that President Asiedu-Dartey Akufo-Addo is going, NDC has any chance of unseating.
I'll come to you, Dr. Kwapong, but let me quickly run through some interesting comments that
is their cup of tea. I wish them well as a political party. Because if you may, I'll just conclude.
Yes, sir.
As a political party in government, we always desire to have a credible opposition that will keep us on our toes to deliver our promises to the people of Ghana. So to that extent, I wish that the NDC is strong as an opposition party. Remain there,
but not strong enough to
keep
kick
us,
you out.
Absolutely, and keep us in check to deliver. That's the role that they need to play.
Right, this is New Day. You can join our discussions. Let's get interactive. If you're active on Twitter, you can send us a tweet at News on TV3, and you can send us a WhatsApp 0560 70 70. And some interesting comments coming in. Let's quickly read some of them, and then we'll continue with our discussions. This one from David Bolgatanga says, Mr. Rawlings and his wife should give us a break. No matter how long the NDC will be in opposition, it will win again. How will he feel if it happens without him? And Okay from Manson Kwanta says, I agree with former president that the NDC needs a total cleanup. What he failed to add is that it will require a lot of time, about 4 decades. A party that preached probity and accountability now made corruption their mantra. And next one says that I believe that every leadership is built on 4 pillars: the leader, the followers, the situation, and the communication. Thank you very much. And this one says, I am NDC. Let me ask the party leaders. So, are they not aware of the corruption? Let me remind Dr. a pack of the following: 1, bus branding; 2, procurement of aircraft by President Mahama; 3, current ambulance saga. And this one also from Prosper Silence at Keta says, former president has said it all, and the leaders must get to the grassroots and work for the betterment of the NDC party. Former President Rawlings has said it all. This is coming from Fuseni from Sablugu. So, Dr. Kopong, the NDC and the MPP are at each other all the time because, like Honorable Messiah is saying, they need there is always a need for a credible opposition. The NDC will work to kick out the MPP. But the NDC issues and election, we started seeing the enormity of that. But Dr. Park has clearly conceded that when a party is bruised the way it did in the 2016 elections, there is a lot of work to do in order to get the party back on its feet and then win the elections. Way forward, when you look at the president, former President Rawlings and his role in the NDC, do you get the feeling that he keeps, excuse me to use the word, pissing in most of the time and making the NDC's fortune a bit more difficult? Should he be shutting up?
No. He advises from a distance, and I think it's good for the NDC to listen to him. President Rawlings. And he launched his political career by preaching the virtue of accountability and probity, integrity, you know. And I think he's been very consistent over the years, holding on to those values, those core values he launched his political career with. I believe he gets embarrassed from time to time when he looks at his own party and sees that there are cases of corruption. Then what was the whole purpose of the June 4, 31st December, wherein he came with the hope and intention of cleaning or clearing the rot in society, to the point that that process saw generals in the army being tied to the stakes at station.
And shot. In broad daylight.
30 years down the road, the party that he eventually formed is seen to be involved in corruption. Naturally, he would be worried. Psychologically, he would wake up every morning and say, then what was the whole purpose of, the cleanup exercise that we did? And so I guess by doing this, he's just drawing the attention to their original and core principles.
But Doc, there are those who have also argued that the NDC really has moved so far away from the revolutionary ideologies of former President Rawlings. They turned themselves into a credible democratic force, have won elections in this country, have pursued multi-party democracy effectively. So it's like when Rawlings comes in that way, trying to drag the party back to the revolutionary roots, then people begin to raise questions about that. You don't see that as something that should worry core supporters of the party?
In fact,
especially those who don't come from the cadre era.
That's right. Yeah, one would naturally be worried, but I still believe that political parties are built around certain ideologies, certain core values, certain virtues. And no matter the nature of the transformation or evolution, you still have to hold on to those core values. Somebody has defined evolution as transformation through preservation. At least we are transforming the party, but we are still mindful of our original core values with which we formed the party, or the movement which later became a party. So for me, it's legitimate for him to draw attention to these things. In fact, I've heard some NDC people say that, he even campaigned for Nana Akufo-Addo by some of his utterances. Okay. Similarly, they have accused Martin Amidu of, making similar utterances. But I think it's for the good of the party to listen to these individuals and try to go back to their roots and, revive those values, because I think that is one of the main reasons why some people are distancing themselves from the party. The cadres are still there. That network is still there. But where they see the political leadership of today, NDC leadership, moving away from those core values, they kind of feel very uncomfortable. And so I think we should listen to, there is wisdom and virtue in what the man is
he's saying.
doing.
Dr. Park, do you also get the sense that the party NDC has drifted too far away from its core ideologies? And Dr. Kwapon says, you need to whip yourself back into shape.
Not from where I sit. Not from where I sit. As I said earlier, I mean, in the life of every institution, there is bound to be changes. But those changes should not cause you to leave your core principles. I mean, I don't see in our NDC constitution where it has said that we are not guided by the values of
core values of probity and
accountability. It's still the same. And of course, people speak about
allegations of corruption. Have you demonstrated that?
People speak about allegations of corruption. I'm here to know or hear of any member of the previous administration who has been thrown into jail for an act of corruption. Obviously, there are perceptions. It has always been the case. I mean, point to any government that has ruled this country from the days of Nkrumah till today that has not been accused of acts of corruption. Even the MPP, as we speak today, there are some who believe from their own stock that certain acts have gone on that they allege are acts of corruption. So it's simply because there are allegations.
Corruption has been from Adam.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it has become a default position that is usually adopted by political opponents. And that doesn't look to me as though it's going to change. But although I certainly abhor corruption myself, we all understand the implications and how it is detrimental to our well-being as a nation, because the resources that should be going towards improving the conditions and the lives of our people certainly should not be harnessed into private pockets to the detriment of the people. But as I said earlier, you know, the processes have begun. And we all, I mean, I want to see my party back in power way more than he would want me to succeed. So if we all know that, you know, these are the avenues through which we can get ourselves in a better stead to make ourselves attractive to the good people of Ghana, to give us another opportunity, why not? But as I said, you know, the process begins from the grassroots and then goes to the top. By the time all is said and done, there is no guarantee that the current crop of leadership from the grassroots to the national level are going to be the current crop of leadership. We don't know. So there are processes that have started unfolding. So yes, we would always listen to caution, to guidance, but sometimes is the context and the approach that makes some feel uncomfortable. Right. I mean, you know, people like to compare, you know, the two former presidents, President Kufuor and President Rawlings. I mean, one definitely has no qualms.
Three former presidents, as we speak.
No, but he's making comparison
why
between.
Are you trying to stifle my flow?
No, he's just making comparison between two.
Yes,
Rawlings and Kufuor.
Yes, Rawlings chooses to advise and admonish publicly, and Kufuor, I believe, chooses to advise and admonish privately. So definitely there are two different.
Chooses to use diplomacy.
I didn't say that. There are two different styles, but be as it may, everyone and their nature, everyone and their personal attributes and their comfort zones and what medium and platforms that they choose to use. That is their right. But as a party, I can assure you that we are very eager to do what we know we need to do to put ourselves in good stead, so that as Rawlings wishes,
we will kick out the MPP
come
2020. Right. This is still
that is his wish.
On TV3. You can also hear us on 3FM 92.7. We're streaming live on our Facebook page. Now, let's shift the discussion. We started talking about the paperless port transactions, which the Vice President has said has resulted in over 50% revenue collection compared to the same period last year. But there have been challenges with implementation of the paperless, and we'll get to hear from Honorable Mesa pretty shortly about it. But there is also the 12 labor unions who are threatening to go on strike if government does not transfer their Tier 2 pensions contributions into a custodian account by September 29. So we'll take a break, but when we return, we'll do these two discussions together, see where we're going with the paperless transaction, and also ask the key question of why government is not transferring this money sitting in the Bank of Ghana account to the groups, the various union groups under the Tier 2 pension. This is New Day. We'll be back. Right, welcome back to New Day. I still have Dr. Clement Park, Dr. Edward Kwapong, and Ejapa Mesa, and MP for Second D in the studio. We have quite a number of your messages coming in. I quickly have to read some of them, and then we'll continue with our discussion. It says, good morning, TV3. I like how His Excellency President Rawlings always advises the NDC, but remember that the dead goat syndrome is still with the NDC. Hence, I will want to be a member of the MPP since okay, right. So thank you very much for your message. And this one says, Hardy from Pig Farm, the great NDC doesn't have a founder, but founders. So the NDC should stop glorifying Rawlings and move on. You want to fear Allah and fear man too? When he sold in Sawam Canary to his wife, is that one not part of corruption? He has always been speaking about. And good morning, Steve. Thank you very much. If NDC fails, President Rawlings fails because he's the founder of the party. Leadership is not about talks, but hard work. Gregory, wisdom from Hache. I think I got it correct. And this one says, this is from Musa Abattoir in Kumasi. I entirely agree with Dr. Park. What Mr. Rawlings is saying today is nothing new. The corruption allegations that Mr. Rawlings was crying about previously are happening now. So why is he not talking about it? The issue of unseating MPP in 2020, Rawlings is not God, and he will never assume that position. So we are seriously working to revamp the grassroots. Thank you very much. And this one from Tiswa Al-Hassan Shishagu, from Tamale, says the former president, John Rawlings, has been speaking hard truth. He is a man of integrity. That's why he has hinted the opposition NDC that it will be difficult to unseat President Nana Akufo-Addo. And the NDC on power, all the vital areas such as eliminating of students' allowance, job creation, increasing SHS fees were dominating, and which was very bad because as a reasonable human being without job, nothing can a student depend on. Every human being needs job in order to take. This is coming from Justice from Tamale. Right, so thank you for your messages. You can send more of the messages coming in and we'll share with the rest of the world. Let's quickly lump into the second, the third part of our debate. I did mention to you that 12 unions, labor unions, are threatening to go on strike if government does not ensure the payment of their Tier 2 pension funds into their custodian accounts by September 29. And also, there is the paperless transactions that have been introduced at the ports. There are many who get the impression that this is actually frustrating processes there. Clearing agents have said that it is actually making them spend a lot of time in, could have the potential of extra demurrage charges and all of that, whilst the Vice President has said actually revenue collection has increased by 50% compared to the same period last year. So let me come to you, Honorable Mesa. Let's start with the paperless transaction, because before we went on a break, we brought that up a little bit when Dr. Park raised the issue of GCNet. So do you think there are systems in place from the existing operators to frustrate the success of the paperless port transaction?
Well, I do not have any evidence to buttress any such assertion that some operators are deliberately frustrating the implementation of the paperless process. But of course, clearly, the statistics that the Vice President put out during the course of the week with respect to the increase in revenue clearly shows that it's something that is worth following through to make sure that it works. Consistent with every new policy implementation, there's likely to be hiccups acceptability by players within the industry, system challenges and all that would be attendant to any such implementation. But my understanding really is that it's a very, very good tool. Of course, we all know the role that ICT plays in our world setup now. There's no way that we can do without ICT. And this paperless port thing is essentially an ICT-based clearing system.
It's just a technology-driven application.
It's a technology-driven.
We need to make our lives
that takes
easier.
away the human intervention as much as possible. Of course, it is something that is going to succeed.
But the clearing agents still say that taking out the human intervention is more like frustrating the system and things are not getting done.
You see, people are not happy to adapt to change easily, But when we get used to it, we will get there. I mean, I as a member of the Communications Committee of Parliament, visited as a committee. We paid a courtesy visit on the offices of GCNet to apprise ourselves of the operations since the implementation of the paperless process. And it was very revealing. I mean, to the extent that you can monitor live all the activities in the value chain and know what it is that is happening at every stage of the clearing process.
So you didn't find any reasons why the actors are complaining?
Well, like I said, it's a change issue, and people will resist change if they find the existing regime much more comfortable space for them to operate in. This has come to stay. I mean, paperless process, really, the single window thing did not begin today. GCNet was set up by government agencies and some private sector player years ago. Along the line, my brothers brought in West Blue, created its own confusion. They've managed to cohabit because the introduction of West Blue itself led to some contractual breaches of the agreement that the government of Ghana had with GCNet. But they felt that, well, to the extent that we can accommodate some aspects of the operations and marry it together. And there was never a real implementation, no drivers behind achieving a paperless port system until His Excellency the Vice President took ownership of it and said that we're going to do this and implement it fully to the letter and get all the processes paperless by September 1st. And that's what has happened. So yes, it is not a new creation, but the drive to implement it fully was the sole work that was done by His Excellency the Vice President. Hiccups would be resolved. Some room has been made for some manual releases of some containers to ease the pressure on the ports. But I know that the agencies that are involved are bent on implementing the full paperless system so that all the loopholes and gaps that we all know has been existing at our ports
will be eliminated.
It's something that we all as people should embrace
and Dr. Parker,
support.
You also feel that the paperless is the right thing, the way to go?
Yes.
Because like you said, it didn't start today.
I wouldn't argue against that. I mean, in every nation, every system, you always encounter issues and challenges, and then you try to find ways of addressing them. In fact, whilst I don't want to do too much of the politics, because the reason why West Blue came in was very clear, and the concerns that GCNet raised was also to protect their territory.
It's relevant if it clarifies the point.
It was
for
to protect their territory.
To say.
But the processes of getting them synergized and working with the public entity responsible, Ghana Revenue Authority, Customs Division, to ensure that we enhance revenue collection, and as far as the import-export sector is concerned, is one that we started, they've come to build on it. And yes, that is what we want to see.
You started GCNet.
GCNet was in existence.
So why are you talking about
West Blue coming together with GCNet and
West Blue
all the training, the support and the funding from the Dutch government, the Danish government to GRA to increase their capacity. All of these things.
I don't know why you guys want of
claiming credit for
every policy that the government.
I have not disagreed with you.
It's rolling out.
It is not its policy. You know that this single window concept, the processes towards giving it effect, began before you took over the reins of this country.
But they didn't begin with you.
I haven't said that.
But that is what you are seeking to suggest.
I haven't said
that. West Blue, you introduced West Blue.
We didn't introduce
to come
West
and duplicate the work that GCNet was already doing.
Did not duplicate any work that GCNet is doing. If that was the case, why would West Blue still be relevant in the scheme of things?
But that's I just told you that they've accommodated them. They didn't want to raise any contractual issues.
That is because the context within which they came.
That they felt that
the context
within the space that they were
came into the space. Output of GC. And point is this: the single window system, the paperless process of enhancing work at the port in terms of clearing goods, it's a good thing. And if it is going to enhance revenue collection, why not? If you remember, part of my role, when we were in government, was that I was a spokesperson for a revenue mobilization task force. And by and large, what we were doing was to work with GCNet to identify those importers who connived with some unscrupulous customs officers to cheat the system. And part of the solution on the basis of the work that we did with GCNet
was the recommendation
was factored into the way forward. So we all play our role. And I think that we must acknowledge that indeed this nation, even with all of the reforms that are happening, is still losing money from unscrupulous elements who are supposed to protect the public.
So beyond just the paperless to remove these unscrupulous people,
yes,
what is your suggestion of things that could further be done
to
enhance revenue collection?
I think that what we need to do perhaps is to increase education, because the complaints that I am hearing, some of it has to do with this freight forwarders and, if you like, clearing agents not fully understanding the changes that are occurring. And I mean, always remember
how to
that
use these applications.
When change occurs, usually there is a group that feels that it is losing its dominance and influence, and certainly would try to push back.
He's in a better position to do that. To believe him when he says so.
But you see,
he was speaking for the task force.
Yes, so I understand.
And
even what we were doing, at the time that they were in opposition, they had accused us of trying to take over the work and function of GRA Customs Division. But today, they are now in the seat. They now understand that when we were up in arms, advocating and calling attention to what was going on and trying to put in place at least immediate measures to deal with the situation whilst we look at medium to long-term ways of handling it, that we were not doing that out of malice. We were doing that out of practical necessity. But you see, I wish the process certainly will be enhanced. It will come to stay. He has said that there is no way we are going to go back. I agree. But I think that the challenge is the claim that is being made by the Vice President. And I had the Chief Executive Officer of the Importers and Exporters Association, Awongobet, say that the reason for the increase in revenue is not only attributable to the paperless, but it's also because in an election year, there's always a tendency for the players in the import-export sector to be cautious.
So let him give us
in
statistics
terms of
from 2015,
the volume
2014, 2013, and 2012. Then we can do
but that is what he has said, and you can't
that
dismiss
assertion
it.
is baseless.
You can't dismiss.
Completely
you cannot
baseless.
dismiss what he is
You
saying.
can only play political mischief with it.
I have not said that. The man has been there.
Ask him to give you content of the
No. He has challenged what the vice president has said. He has challenged what
the other years that were not election years.
The vice president has made a claim. The man has challenged the assertion. It is your responsibility to challenge him, to bring forth this evidence.
Now the principle of he who asserts has changed.
To contradict what the vice president is saying.
Because it's your purpose.
And simply put, it makes a lot of sense.
It does.
I mean, it is known across the world that in an election year, there is always caution. In terms of business.
I mean, businessmen
and particularly the import
are holding back on their investments.
Exactly. But now that the election has been over and we have transitioned peacefully, and everyone knows that Ghana has not gone up in flames, the confidence in as far as the fear hitherto of losing investment has waned, and therefore the volumes have increased. And I think that is a practical reason that can also account for the increases in revenue. I am not saying that the paperless hasn't, but I'm saying that is not the only factor. And so when the vice president is making that claim,
we should be cautious.
We must also factor in other causal reasons that may account for the increase in revenue. But I am glad that at least we are beginning to get rid of the charlatans who have used the import-export sector as a conduit to milk this country. I mean, practically put, the vampires in that industry, I am glad that they are being starved of blood.
Dr. Kopon, we will be discussing this SNIT Tier 2 pension and the position of the 12 labor unions pretty shortly. But before we do that, I want to hear from you. I know that when changes like this happen, there are quite a number of players who begin to worry that they might not have their previous roles. In terms of jobs, some might be out of business because we are introducing technology to reduce the number of hands that manage a particular transaction. Under the circumstance, with the paperless introduction of the paperless and how the players should respond to it, what would be your advice to those who appear to be negatively affected as they're pushed back for computers to do their work?
Well, it's obvious that, yes, with the introduction of the paperless system, the human intervention will reduce, and therefore, naturally, some people will lose their jobs. But I believe the economy is expanding. As a country, we are growing. There are other areas that they can channel their energies into. Some of them could even become consultants because they've been in this business for so long. They understand the processes and procedures, and therefore they should be able to, find alternative jobs within that industry. So for me, yes, it's not that scary as it is.
Okay.
But I also want to add a few things to this, that yes, revenue is going to increase. Corruption will be eliminated if it works and works very well, because then there is an audit trail of everything that you do. And therefore, if auditors come, they can always go into the system and find out where certain transactions took place and the resultant actions. It will also speed up the process. And when we have a very timely process of clearing goods, it builds confidence in the business community, and it can even attract foreign direct investment because people will begin to have confidence in the system.
So, I mean, your view is that despite all the challenges, this is a good thing.
That's right. And as a matter, we are also rhyming with the rest of the world. It's a matter of best practice. So for me, I'm all for it.
Let's now shift our attention to the labor unions and their Tier 2 pension funds. Right. When you look at the back and forth that have been ongoing for years now, I think since 2012 or 2014, this has been ongoing. What do you make of it?
I am at a loss. These are monies that have been deducted from workers towards their pension. And the Tier 3 pension system allows for Tier 2 to be lodged with a custodian or a trustee to manage it better for the owners of the fund. Why would Bank of Ghana hold on to this? If Bank of Ghana is holding on to this, are they paying interest on that? Would that positively affect the pension payments when people are due for pension. I don't really understand.
So you do you get a feeling that the anxiety of the labor unions are justified?
Legitimate. For me, they are legitimate. If those monies had been given to fund managers to invest, the return on that will add to the pension that eventually when they retire, they will benefit from. Right now, the money is sitting idle. Nothing is happening to.
Well, we don't even know if the money is sitting idle.
Well, that's why.
Because it's, the account is lodged at the Bank of Ghana. But what would you say the union should be doing beyond the threats? Because this is not the first threat they've made. They've hit the streets a couple of times since 2014. And now they have given government up to September 29 to pay these monies into the custodian accounts.
Well, over the years, from 2012 or 13 to date, they have always sort of created a platform to talk to government. Unless, of course, government is not listening to them, then perhaps they can resort to the... But they should continue to talk, because it was with your government.
Yeah.
Now there has been a change, and the new government is just about 7-8 months into
so really, the problem was inherited by the MPP.
Absolutely. So they should continue to dialogue with government. I think that would be a better
Dr. Park,
approach to...
Under the NDC, this problem still existed. Do you know what the progress was and how government related with the unions over this? I know there was an agreement to pay the money through the accountant generals by April 1st of 2016. That has not happened.
I haven't followed this issue much, in all honesty. But I remember that when we were in government, it was an active issue that warranted a number of high-level meetings. I think the current minority leader at the time was the sector minister, and various conversations took place, and a direction was laid out as to how to deal with the matter. Given that it is still with us, quite clearly shows that it was not concluded. But you know, governance is a continuum. So when you take over the assets and liabilities. And that is exactly why sometimes we have to claim a foundation, and then they have to claim topping it up, so to speak. But you see, I remember in the run-up to the election, this was a very active issue that those now in government definitely spoke aggressively and passionately about.
It went in their favor.
Most certainly. So I think that at the end of the day, we should seek to do what is right, what is fair and what is equitable. But the threat of a strike, well, labor unions, that is one of the tools available to them to seek redress. But I think government has ample time to engage them to find a solution. Because whether we like it or not, once their request is right and is justified, and is legal,
the deductions have been made.
I mean, it is
they're arguing that some of their members are going on pension.
It's impossible to deny them.
Is not done.
To deny them their due. So I would want to urge government to move quickly. The president says he's a man in a hurry.
Yeah, man in a hurry.
So I within that context, I don't think that 8 months is a short period of time, because a man in a hurry, you know, he's moving with the speed of lightning. And this matter too must
I can sense some sarcasm in that.
This matter too must capture his attention.
What's happening? I mean, what is your government doing?
For him to work on it.
But of course, the president has said he's in a hurry.
He's a man in a hurry. I mean, I'm being factual.
Of course, the president has said over and over again that he's a man in a hurry.
I think we should all be in a hurry.
Of course, we all should be in a hurry.
That is right.
But you see the alacrity with which he makes the point that government should pay them. You collected the money.
This is a typical Commonwealth observatory language, alacrity.
You collected the funds, kept it for whatever reason, and didn't pay it to the beneficiaries. Government since we came to power has been up to date with all funds that have been collected in respect of the tier 2 and paid out to the custodian account. So we have not breached any good faith relationship or sought to sit on the funds.
So what's left to be done?
These are monies that relate to the past years. And my understanding is our government is going to engage them to resolve this matter such that there will not be any labor agitation as they have threatened on the 29th of September. Why the NDC did not pay those monies to them. Unfortunately, Dr. Park conveniently is not fully apprised.
It's not conveniently. I'm not apprised.
But
I think
we all know.
If I were, I would have stated it.
Well, for several other matters, you would speak boldly to it, but in respect of this, you will not.
So
but
really, I mean,
we have a responsibility as a government, if the funds are there, to pay it out to the beneficiaries. Because for some of us who came from the private sector, I think that you can't joke with pensions. And I made sure at all times that my colleagues in the firms, pensions were, always. So I compelled them to even do tier 3 and other, savings instruments. It's useful. You never know.
Voluntary tier 3.
So I can indicate to organized labor that this rest assured that government is going to deal with their issue head on, and we'll definitely bring a resolution to this.
So
long-standing problem.
So can you make guarantees that? Can you make some guarantees that the September 29th?
Oh, they will definitely be engaged. There won't be. I do not think that there will be a strike on the 29th of September. Government is going to engage them actively to resolve this matter one way or the other.
All right. So, Dr. Parker, let me quickly flip to the introduction of the new Ghana card. Whilst we're discussing Bank of Ghana, pension funds sitting in, we're also looking at multiplicity of identities. I mean, if we look at SNIT, SNIT recently issued its biometric card. It's all
75 million.
It's all an identity. I mean, I have the SNIT biometric card sitting in my wallet. I really haven't used it before for anything, except once I walk into the Social Security and National Insurance SNIT to check how far my contributions are going. But beyond that, it's not being useful. But now the NIA is introducing the Ghana card, which we're told is going to be the modern card. We'll have access to about 14 or so features. It can be used as an ECOWAS traveling pass instead of your passport. The NIA had been in existence for a long time. Under the NDC, they were not able to complete the national identification process that was started under the previous regime. So do you see this as an important step they should be able to see through?
Well, first of all, having a national identification card, I believe, is very important. I mean, those of us who have had the chance to live in other jurisdictions, quite clearly, those types of cards have always been very useful. Indeed, having multiplicity of cards, just even the fiscal discomfort of having to carry so many cards in your wallet alone should be a detriment, and certainly should cause us to ensure that this revival of the new Ghana card really takes hold. I know he wouldn't want to hear this, but of course, it's not as though we were sleeping on the job. Processes were ongoing.
Processed in 8 years.
Processes were ongoing.
All the 8 years you were processing.
Oh.
I registered for a card. I never got
for 8 years.
Processes were ongoing.
Processed for 8 years.
They have come and they have continued. We are seeing the outcome.
So this is a continuation of the processes that you started.
Is it a new policy?
2000?
Is it a new process?
So give credit to President Kufuor.
I have not said that. I'm not giving anyone credit. I am saying that.
Say that, unfortunately, you could not continue from the foundation that His Excellency President Kufuor set.
He asked me what I thought about the card.
NPP has come.
I have admitted.
Honorable Minister, you are not allowing Dr. Park to land.
That the card is useful. And indeed, if it is going to have the features that we've been told, quite clearly, it should be able to serve multiple purposes. But we wait to see.
We wait to see. That's
because
the approach.
the only person who can, for now, vouch for having received the card is the president.
So we wait to see.
When we all get our
turn,
Ghana cards, we will then begin to use and then make the assessment and draw conclusions.
Right.
But I think that it is a good thing
Dr.
that
Clement
we have a card of that nature, because it would enhance a lot of activity. It would also even be good for our own personal security, as well as the security of other transactions that we engage in. But my only concern is the synergy between the card and the address system. Whilst we began this address system of giving naming roads and what have you, I know that process was not concluded.
But the MPP is starting a digital address system.
How are they going to do that?
That's different.
How are they going to do that?
Layer.
For example, my house in Dorninga. Honestly, I have no house number in my village.
You wonder how a digital address will be ascribed to your house.
That is the point.
Well,
and so, given the
technology
time frame,
people will tell us
the time frame that government has announced, well, the man sees he's a man in a hurry. So perhaps he has something up his sleeve.
This is NewDay. We're having an interesting discussion. Dr. Clement Park there. Later, we'll take a break, and when we return, we'll get Dr. Kwapong to also come into the issue of the national identification. And later on, we will be also make time to discuss the suggestions that have been made by the Ghana Standards Authority boards to legalize marijuana and its exports, ganja exports. We'll be right back. Please stay. Welcome back to NewDay Saturday edition, and my guests in the studio are Dr. Edward Kwapong, who is an HR practitioner, Dr. Clement Park Busa, South MP, and Ejapa Mesa, who is MP for second year. So let me get to you, Dr. Kwapong. We started talking about the Ghana card and the need to have unified ID system. There's also been a discussion of using the Ghana card as the voter's card. Do you see this as feasible way forward?
Well, it is possible. But then my first comment is that, yes, we need, as it were, an integrated national ID card that we can carry all the time and validate our identity and personality wherever we go. So for me, it's a very good thing, and we must all support it. It's also, I think it will be tied to, I don't know, but are foreign nationals also going to, you need to be a Ghanaian to register, right?
I think so.
So that
you need to be a Ghanaian resident, but I reckon that there are categories of your card. You can be a foreigner resident in this country. When you're a Ghanaian resident, you have a card which will bear your nationality. I think so, but we're yet to find out the other details of it. But
maybe Lawyer Mesa would fill us in.
But what I find interesting is that it will control the number of foreign nationals, our neighbors, who come into the country and immediately get access to all manner of things, free education, free healthcare. They even apply for passports. And so you go to the US, you meet people with Ghanaian names, and they are, sorry, I don't have to mention the country, but they are not Ghanaian.
They're Nigerian.
They're Nigerian.
So, okay. As a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee,
yes.
It's a constant problem, and I know that work is being done to address it at that level.
So for me, it's a good move to ensure that if you're a Ghanaian, you have a card that you will be identified with, and it's tied into all other ID cards like the SNET, your driver's license, your every other thing. So
and
it's
if
a
you
one-stop.
want, your bank as well.
Yes. With regard to tying it to elections, I mean, voters' ID card, well, for validation's sake, yes, I'm happy for that. But it looks as if every few years we go to prepare a new voters' register and all that. I don't know how this will impact that exercise.
But exactly that's the point. I mean, if you have a verifiable national ID card, you don't need a voters' register.
Oh, so it will substitute?
No, I'm just asking. I mean, I'm just putting out these questions. So Honorable Mesa, let's hear from you.
The Electoral Commission can easily access that database of all Ghanaians who have turned 18 based on their address.
Oh, okay.
You know, put them in the various constituencies. It's possible. I mean, linking it to the Electoral Commission and voters' ID card. I think there's ample technology to deal with that. But, of course, two huge campaign promises implemented in a month.
I knew he was going to go there.
Why not?
It's obvious.
Why not?
I still have 4 years to
I heard you attempt to take credit for the Ghana campaign.
It's your right to espouse the implementation of your campaign promise.
Then again, everybody in this country who hasn't got a short memory remembers that the national ID card was introduced by His Excellency President Kufuor. 2008, we registered. Cards were supposed to be issued to us, and we lost the election. You came into government in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. 8 years. You played political football with it under the guise of preparing. And that His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo is the one who has come to implement what took you 8 years to prepare. Come on. We are smarter than that.
Right.
Of course we are. This is a clear policy that this government, knowing the benefits in terms of formalizing this economy, the impact that it can make in our revenue generation and several other things, committed to do and continue from where Kufuor left off that you guys played chaskele with to date. And we have implemented it in accordance with the promise that we made to the people of Ghana. Give us credit.
You have started.
Give us credit.
Received my card yet.
The card has been issued, and we've indicated that we are tying
card
it to the digital address system. And you said that you wonder to what extent that can be done.
I talked about the timing.
There's what 3 words? Ivory Coast. Several other countries are implementing it. That gives you a clear address, location. So it's possible and it's going to be done.
And the technology is
there
to do that.
It's there. It's not new. So it makes you wonder why it took you 8 years to prepare to do this.
Dr. Awaswe,
I want my
wasted everybody's time.
Let me have it.
Because you didn't want it. The truth of the matter is that, you see, it's all for political and electoral purposes. That's why they didn't do it.
So you think the NDC didn't make
mischief
that a priority?
They did not, because it wasn't going to serve their purpose electorally. Are they going to bring their overseas voters to come and vote?
That's unfair.
Or alleged? I'm prepared to concede and buy my statements. I don't have a problem.
Or so Togolese didn't ever produce the list.
I'm prepared to vary it.
Don't go there. We've come
the alleged foreign voters to come and vote.
So
it doesn't.
Let's move away from this national ID card discussion. We have just about 20 minutes to wrap up, and let's talk about the proposals by Professor Alex Dodu to legalize marijuana. Dr. Park, I'll start from you.
Well,
legalizing marijuana is like declassifying its criminality.
You know, it's a very interesting debate that has raged on, not only in this country, but across the world. About whether or not marijuana should be legalized. As we say, we call it in Ghana, alias in Tampi, should be legalized. There are those who believe that it has medicinal properties. And indeed, if you look at countries like the US and I believe parts of Europe, the Netherlands in particular, they allow for the procurement and use
as recreational drugs
for recreational or for medicinal purposes. In the US, I know that you can actually get a doctor to prescribe some for you. Wow. If particularly in California, where I used to
if
live.
you have glaucoma in your eye, maybe you can do ganja. And it's
in Canada, when I was in Vancouver.
But is that not serious?
It was.
Is that, does that not bring serious implications for us?
It has implications.
As a third world country, whether we have the resources to manage the legalities
those are
surrounding marijuana.
That is why
and
it's
even like Professor is saying, export it and make
as we
some
speak
money.
now, I think that as far as the laws of this country are concerned, it is considered an illegal substance. If I'm wrong.
Yeah. You could go in for 25
So
years.
for now, as we speak, it's an illegal substance. Now, have we reached a stage where we want to take a second look at it? Yes, the argument can be made that because of its economic value, we could consider, as the professor suggested, growing it for export. But where do you draw the line?
Between legality
exactly.
and the need for money and making foreign exchange.
How can you grow it for export and at the same time maintain that it's illegal for use by the people in the nation state that is exporting it? So these are very serious and nuanced issues that have to be considered. I think that it is too early, my own opinion, for us to be having this conversation, because yes, while some may use it and it may be beneficial to them in terms of their recreational needs and perhaps even their medical conditions, a lot of research still presents the fact that it is dangerous for the sanity of some persons. So I'm on the committee, the Public Accounts Committee, and when this issue came up, it generated a lot of very interesting discussions. And I even added the issue of the local gin as well, which by and large, we don't have a standard for. And the fact that a lot of it is also diluted. So, Prof, yes, the idea is worth considering.
But you think it's a wild idea?
I don't think
we might not be seen implemented.
We have reached there to be able to draw a definite conclusion or make a definite proposal that we should be growing it for export. Because I'm worried that once we begin to grow it for export, by all means, the use is also going to increase. Although it is being used.
Dr. Kwapon, should we be having this discussion at all?
I think so. To the extent that some states in the U.S. have legalized.
Yeah, they prescribe it.
Even in Europe.
Yeah.
In Europe?
Yes.
Well, I know.
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Yeah. It means that before.
the UK is a recreational drug.
Okay.
You can just
and before they
use it in your home if you're not going to sit in a pub or sit in a public place to smoke it.
Sure. A nation would take such a step. They will have done a lot of studies. There's several implications. The psychological effect of it on users of this drug. So for me, once some countries have taken the lead and they have not suffered any serious setbacks, I'll go for it. To the extent that we will export it and make some money. Then we will also have eliminated the hypocrisy. We know that people smoke it, young and old, all manner of people. That's the reality test. So why are we pretending that, it's illegal to smoke when we see people smoking in our streets?
And actually people are growing it in huge volumes.
So if you can legalize it and rather control the use of it, for me, I wouldn't worry too much because it's been with us since 1945. I hear the soldiers returned from Burma with the leaves and then they started planting and we started smoking, And then it will create jobs for our people. For me, in HR, why not? It will create jobs for our people. For as long as we control the use of it. I know that children in schools may, attempt to smoke. But I'm told that even the hair products that our ladies use,
a lot of them
have marijuana in them to grow your hair. Some of the medicines that we buy from the drugstores contain marijuana anyway. So what's the big deal? It wouldn't make any real difference. And I believe that for a country like Bolivia, about a quarter of their GDP comes from, export of marijuana. Yes. So for me, yes, it has a moral implication. But if indeed we are already using it in medicines, in foods and all that, then why do we continue to play this hypocrisy game and claim it's illegal, and therefore we should all, shy away from it? It's a reality test, and I think we should go in for it.
Honorable Ijapa, what's the government's position on
Well,
this? Is there a position? You won't be able to speak
I'm
for
not in a
government.
position to speak on government's position, but speaking of myself, I mean, there must be some merit, particularly coming from the head of the agency that is supposed to monitor standards, in Ghana. My fear really is whether we have the capacity to regulate the use,
Legalization.
because it's not too much as the use, but the abuse. That's where the problem is. And chances are people, when they use it and they do not derive the satisfaction, the high anymore, then they escalate to other higher or much more dangerous substances. And it can't really be destructive. I do not know the countries where these marijuana and has been legalized, the systems that
and how they've
are
been
in
able
place
to manage it.
manage it. But I think that we should tread cautiously, because I've seen people, and I know people who have practically destroyed themselves through drug use. And I do not think that we as a country should encourage, because of money, to go that route at all.
Right, honorable.
So, and to be honest, Prof was expressing a personal opinion. That question was posed as a public interest question. So when he says that there is no position, it is true. It was his personal opinion. And of course, it is by virtue of his understanding of the potential risk that his focus was more on the export rather than local consumption. Right. But the issue is, where do you draw the line?
Find this way to the
exactly.
They are here
it's almost
already
impossible. Yeah. It's impossible.
Gentlemen, we have to wrap up. We have to wrap up our conversation. It's been great having all of you to join us, watch us on TV3 New Day, and listen to us on 3FM 92.7. But before we go, I'll quickly run through some of the last few messages that have been coming in. This one from Mike from Ada says, seriously, what I don't understand is the NDC claiming every policy of the MPP. If truly it's their policy and they couldn't implement in all these years in power, the MPP is also to implement in just 7 months in office, then they should give us a break. Good morning. The technology used for the national identity card can never be done in 8 months, as being suggested by your guest from the MPP. I don't think he suggested that it will be done in 8 months. Thank you very much. Marcus Garvey from Navrongo says, issuing the first Ghana card to the president is a bad example. That doesn't represent the spirit of service, but lordship. It should have been issued to a very commoner. Well, that's your view. Thank you. And Kotoka says that I agree with the GSA boss that marijuana should be legalized, but it must be conditioned. There must be conditions of legalizing it. We all agree there is also need for us to know how to manage this. And if NDC fails, President Rawlings also fails. We've read that, and thank you very much. Good morning, Steve. TV3. I like how His Excellency President Rawlings always advises the NDC well. So that's where we end New Day. My name is Stephen Enti, and it's been great having you. We had with us Dr. Edward Kwapong, an HR expert, Dr. Clement Park, Busa South MP, and Honorable Ejapa Mesa, Andrew Ejapa Mesa, second DMP. I'm Stephen Enti, and join us again next week for another interesting discussion. Please enjoy the rest of our programs. Good morning.